the end of today's presentation that millennials won't feel so elusive. But before I dive into the meat of my presentation, I want to make sure we have a common vocabulary. So first, what the heck are millennials, right? So we're the largest, most diverse generation in the history of the United States. And when I wrote my presentation description, I didn't have the updated numbers on our population, but we're actually 83.1 million people. That's notably 10 million more than baby boomers, the next largest population, the next largest generation in the United States. And we range in age from 11 to 35. It's also my generation. Politics. So many of us think of politics as an activity, something maybe we do once a year on election day when we cast our ballot, or when we're slugging through the presidential debates that we feel like we have to watch. But I encourage you to rethink politics. Imagine politics as a pair of glasses that you're born with. The frames are formed from our individual intersections of power, privilege, and oppression. The lenses are built from our experiences, our successes, our challenges. They grow or wane in thickness as we gain or don't gain cultural and educational capital. Sometimes, maybe we've got a smudge on them, leaving us with a blind spot to our own privilege. Other days, the world's problems seem so clear and the solutions so attainable. But key to this is that we can't leave our glasses at home. They're always with us. We can't take them off when we go to bed. They're with us when we're in the cereal aisle, deciding between the organic cereal, the off-brand, more cost-effective cereal. They're with us when we make that quick assumption about somebody based on their appearance. And most importantly, we're constantly building and rebuilding them. They're built from our experiences, our relationships, the information that we take in. So for today, humor me, and let's think about politics broadly and interpersonally. The public. So the public is the space we move in with other people. It's the up-againstedness or the friction that's created. Here you see a picture of me and my younger brothers scrunched in the backseat of the family car on a long road trip. It's pretty obvious that some of us are more excited to be going on the road trip than others. And so we agree to bound our free will and our agency. We legislate rules about when we're going to eat, when we're going to listen to music, what kind of music we're going to listen to, what kind of road trip games we're going to play, when we're going to take a nap, when we're going to be alone. And for the most part, it works out. We're all part of the conversation, and we all make concessions. But often in the public, it's not just three of us. It's lots of us trying to make productive conversations about who gets to be human and who gets educated and what our community values are. It's hard. We're all bringing our various political glasses. We're all bringing different experiences. But it's important that we're engaged in our public. It's our human condition. Can't leave it. So, civic engagement. Civic engagement is the formal pathway by which we navigate the public to ensure our government reflects our values. Now, more often than not, we envision civic engagement as electoral politics. It's voting, maybe it's running for office for a select few of us. Maybe you write your elected official a couple times during the legislative session. But very rarely do we think of rebellion as civic engagement, of marching, of protests. Rarely do we think about the dialogues that we're having with our neighbors, our friends, our families. Rarely is it volunteering to get our friends and families out to vote or registered to vote. And it should be. Because it ensures that the conversation, the public table, if you will, is full of diverse voices. So, I want you to imagine the public, when it works well, as a table that's both bringing us together and keeping us from falling all over ourselves, and civic engagement as the productive pathway to that table. So now that we've got the definitions out of the way, a little bit more about millennials. Now, I imagine that many of you, when you heard I was going to be talking about millennials, asked yourself a variety of this question. Aren't millennials just lazy, egotistical social media hounds bent on destroying our nation because of their lack of company loyalty and the ever-praising helicopter parent? Well, I'm here to tell you no. One, because that's a gross generalization. There's 83.1 million of us. So if we're not this, then what are we? My generation has come to age in political, social, and economic uncertainty. The recession, 9/11, even widespread internet access. And because of that, we're a little skeptical of authority. 71% of us think that the system is rigged in favor of the powerful. And only 19% of millennials think that people can generally be trusted. But the good news is that 79% of us really do think we can make the world a better place. And many of us are doing just that through philanthropy and volunteerism. However, a much smaller number of us is doing this through civic engagement. According to the US Census and the Montana Secretary of State, 18 to 34-year-olds make up 22% of eligible voters in Montana. But in 2012, we made up just 14% of those that voted, and in 2014, just 8%. So we've got some work to do. Millennials are social, primarily because most of us are pretty young, right? And young people care about what their peers think, whether they're coming of age in 1962, 1862, or 2016. The difference is that our peers are omnipresent. We're constantly connected by our phones, through Facebook, by Twitter, through text. And so they have a much deeper impact on us as individuals. Millennials are diverse. We're the most racially and religiously diverse generation of Americans in the history of the United States. Additionally, more and more millennials are feeling safe to come out as LGBTQ because of inclusive policies that are being passed across our country. Additionally, social movements are becoming ever inclusive, building intersections across identities. We're seeing this in the Black Lives Matter movement. We're seeing this on campuses like University of Missouri and Yale. And finally, we're almost postmodern. So what the heck does that mean, right? Some of you may have gathered that postmodernity came after modernity. But postmodernity and modernity are the theoretical frameworks that we're building our reality on, our overarching narratives. And so to continue the glasses metaphor from earlier, postmodernity and modernity are the materials our glasses are made out of, even more fundamental than how they're formed. It's the plastic or metal. So when I say that we're almost postmodern, I'm saying that we're coming into a new fundamental framework of reality. Modernity was categorized by progress, the Enlightenment, science, reason, capital T truths, and postmodernity's not. My generation is disenchanted by American nationalism, the language of neoliberalism, the American dream. But we're not ready to give those stories up yet either. Plus, many of the people in power are still deeply entrenched in those narratives. And so that leaves my generation fragmented. We're actively living in a reality that's foundational framework is crumbling. And we have the motive, we have the impetus to build a new framework. But how do we do that? How do we do it collectively? And how do we do it deliberately? So, in short, we're confused, we're optimistic, and we're a little terrified. We have access to information all of the time, and all information, from Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle to Kardashian gossip to what's happening in Beirut now, and now, and now, and now. And so we're distracted. Humans are innately curious anyway, but now we've added amusing games, celebrity gossip, hilarious cat videos. So not only are we distracted, but we're oversaturated. And this information is coming from endless sources. I mean, everyone and their Aunt Sally has a blog or a vlog or a Tumblr or at the very least a Facebook feed that they can fill with whatever they want. Gone are the days where we gathered around, well, not me, but gone are the days where people gathered around the TV to watch Walter Cronkite. And now, even the major players in media, MSNBC, NPR, Fox News, are confused about what happened, what are the details of an incident. So this isn't inherently bad. Independent news sources, alternative zines, even personal blogs have been critical to shifting change and creating new power. But it does mean that it makes coming to that public table even more difficult. Because now we're not just coming with our different political glasses, we're coming with totally different truths. It was hard before, and now it's even more difficult. Yeah, we're pretty financially screwed. In Montana, in the Montana University system, tuition has tripled since 1988. Like the baby boomers, we were told that if we went to college, we would be receiving the American dream. But unlike the baby boomers, most of us have just received debt. 64% of students in Montana take out student loans. And on average, those students are taking out about $27,000 by graduation. Nationwide, nearly a quarter of millennials have had to move back in with their parents because of financial strain. And as of last May, millennial unemployment was triple what our aggregate unemployment was in our nation. So here begins our challenge. How do we engage Americans, Montanans, across our public, across vastly different ways of knowing, across politics, across generations, in the same democracy? I would suggest relationship building. But I think I may have moved a little too fast. Why do I think you should care about engaging young people? Well, first and foremost, we were already invited to the table in 1971 with the 26th Amendment. And second, by 2016, millennials will make up a good chunk of eligible voters in the United States. And by 2020, will be the majority of eligible voters. And like I said earlier, 79% of us really do believe we can make the world a better place. And I think that's an exciting energy to tap into. So, relationship building, or how to make friends. Now, navigating the public, the up againstedness, the friction is already hard with family members, friends, neighbors. And it gets even more difficult when it's with strangers. And difficult conversations, for them to be productive, well, they're just easier to do with friends. I grew up in a family where honesty was a major value. And not just any kind of honesty, but no bullshit honesty. We talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly. I didn't grow up hearing stories about a peachy world full of do-gooders. But I did hear stories about making real change by digging in, being vulnerable, and caring about your community, your friends, and your family a whole lot. And that's why my first piece of advice is to be authentic. Millennials want to hear the stories of struggle. They want to hear what was challenging, what was hard. We don't want to hear heroic narratives about how you won the war. We want to hear about why you felt or feel disenchanted, disenfranchised, why you think civic engagement is the best way to make change. So earlier I talked about civic engagement as the pathway to making sure our government reflects our values, the pathway through the public. But the first step to really having a productive public is to err on the side of kindness. So for example, I'm sure somebody in this room has those college kid neighbors that never shovel their walk. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for even me. I only graduated 2 years ago. But take a moment and consider. Most college kids are not just taking a full load of classes, but they're working and they're navigating that weird space that is being 22. Maybe they don't have a shovel. Honestly, maybe they didn't even know they were supposed to shovel their block. They went from living with their parents to the dorms to now living in the real world. And so be patient, be kind. Go offer your shovel. Explain to them why it's important. Because neither civic value nor navigating the public is something that is innate to us as humans. It only comes through mentorship, through honesty. So err on the side of kindness. Honor our experience too. So yes, we want to hear stories of your struggle. We get it. Walking uphill both ways through the snow to school sounds awful. But we've walked our own hills. And just because they were different hills doesn't mean that our struggle is any less real or any less truthful. And until we start listening to other stories of struggle across generations, across identities, and across political boundaries, we're not going to have a democracy that reflects our values. A piece of practical advice, also, we are real people with real thoughts. We're not just social media geeks. We do know how to do things other than update the website or update the Facebook page. We're happy to help with that, but I can't tell you how many meetings that I've been in where the young person is ignored until the Facebook page comes up, and all of a sudden, their energy is needed. So honor our other talents too. We're excited to rise to your expectations. And finally, register all your friends to vote. Now, why is this part of relationship building? We didn't learn about this in kindergarten. Because we can't have a public where everybody isn't invited to the table. That's not productive. Everybody's voice needs to be heard. So I invite you to provide the invitation to your bank teller, to your neighbor, to your cousin, to your niece, to your nephew, to your friend, to register to vote and to vote. Because until everybody is heard deeply, we won't have that democracy that reflects our nation across generations and across politics. So I don't have that one crazy trick to cure millennial civic apathy, nor is there a top 10 list of how to fix this on BuzzFeed. But my generation, like all generations before ours, need that mentorship. And we want that mentorship in order to create a better democracy. We also need to be listened to ensure our democracy reflects our values. So we're facing unique problems as millennials. But I think if you raise your expectations, we're ready to meet them. So thank you.